Hello and welcome to Django DRF Query Fundamentals course. My name is Xander. Now this tutorial is part of a whole course playlist available for free on YouTube. If you do like this course and you want to delve deeper, the full course is available for purchase at Udemy. Again, find all the resources and links in this video's description. Do remember to subscribe to the channel for weekly promotions, discounts, and of course Udemy course giveaways. Rather than being a complete hour tutorial on different DRF view options, I just wanted to briefly introduce you to the idea that here in Django DRF, very much like Django, there are different approaches that we can use to build APIs, API endpoints within our application. Assuming that you are already familiar with Django, you already know that there are two main approaches when developing the main business logic of our application. We can use function-based views or class-based views. So it is very much the same here in DRF. We do have a choice between function and class-based views. Now, although we do have two approaches, class-based views and function-based views, typically class-based views are chosen to develop DRF endpoints. With class-based views, we see query sets, serializers, and permissions. These are all automatically managed. There is generally more reusability. So logic is organized in methods and reusable base classes, making it easier for us to scale our application. We have mix-ins built in with generic views to allow for easy extension. And generally, it is better suited for larger, scalable APIs. Now, one of the more important issues here is that function-based views are generally more readable for new developers. So that is something potentially that we would need to consider in this course. Should you quickly go ahead and learn Python object-oriented programming? And the answer to that is, well, maybe if you are going to be investing a lot of time into Django DRF and you aren't very familiar with Python object-oriented programming, it will be very beneficial for you to have that knowledge. But that doesn't mean you can't follow along with this course or build DRF endpoints. I will do my best in this course to try and explain everything. And if you don't have a Python object-oriented programming background, then just look at the code in terms of patterns that we are developing, and you can then utilize those patterns to generate your own endpoints, and over time you can go ahead and learn in more depth Python object-oriented programming. The approach that we're going to use in this course is class-based views, so we won't be showcasing any function-based views in this course. It will be purely class-based views. Now, the choices don't stop there. Now that we've chosen class-based views, we have different approaches that we can use now to generate our endpoints. And depending on our needs, will depend on which approach we use. Now, I have to make the assumption that generally you may be new to building API endpoints. You may have never built an endpoint before in your life, or even know what an endpoint is because I haven't explained it. And if you haven't used it before, then you probably have absolutely no idea what that is. So I won't go into any technical detail here because it requires a lot of underpinning knowledge about building APIs, which we will learn some of that on this course. So just be aware of there are different approaches when building API endpoints here in DRF. Let me give you a brief overview of them though. So API views. So an API view, generic API view, and ViewSets are key components in Django's REST framework for building APIs with different levels of abstraction. So API view is the most basic, offering full control over request handling, but it does require manual implementation of what we will create serializers, query sets, and responses. So here with the API view, we have complete control. That's what we get when we use API views. We get complete control of the API process from, like I said, serialization, query sets, so building our queries, and handling responses. So if it's that full control you need, then typically we would use an API view. The generic API view extends the API view by providing lots of built-in support for query sets, serialization, pagination, and filtering. So it makes it more efficient when combined with mix-ins for CRUD operations. So you would use a generic view in Django REST Framework when you need a balance between flexibility and efficiency while handling API requests. So they are ideal when you want to reuse common patterns like listing, retrieving data, creating or updating data, or deleting objects without writing repetitive code. So generic views built on generic API view and mixins provide built-in support, like I said, for querying, serializers, pagination, and filtering. So it just generally makes it more efficient to build than, for example, API views, which is a very manual approach of developing the endpoint. And then last of all, and what we're going to be utilizing in this course, is ViewSets. So ViewSets provide a high level of abstraction. They can help us automatically map multiple HTTP requests or methods to appropriate actions. They can help us reduce boilerplate code by simplifying URL routing through Django's DRF routers. And while API view is best for fully custom logic, generic view is ideal for reusability behavior. ViewSets work best for standard CRUD operations with minimal configuration. So you might like to use ViewSets in Django REST Framework when you want to simplify the implementation of standard CRUD operations while also reducing any boilerplate code. So ViewSets will automatically map HTTP methods that is used to send and receive data to appropriate actions in our views. And this can make it ideal for resource-based APIs where each model typically follows the same pattern. Now in this course, I believe that ViewSets are the best approach to use because it provides us a nice level of abstraction for us to reduce the boilerplate in code. We don't necessarily have to know too much about get, post, put, delete HTTP methods because they will be automatically mapped to HTTP methods. So we only need to look at this at a higher level. And generally the API endpoints that we are creating, they will typically follow the same CRUD patterns. We don't have any extravagant business logic that we're going to implement. We are focused purely really here on the query aspect of API endpoints. So it is going to provide us methods to be able to override and define our own queries. In addition to that, we're going to see that working with URLs and ViewSets, we can automate the process of creating URLs for the endpoints. So when I think of Django DRF, I automatically think of class-based views rather than function-based views to handle API requests. Here we found that there are three main approaches: API view, generic API view, and ViewSets, each offering different levels of abstraction. Now the API view is the most basic, requiring manually handling of requests, query sets, and responses. This makes it suitable for fully custom logic. We have the generic API view, which extends the API view by adding built-in support for query sets, serializers, pagination, and filtering, and is typically used with mixins to streamline CRUD operations. And then we have ViewSets, which we're going to be using in this course. So this offers the highest abstraction level, automatically mapping HTTP methods to actions or methods and integrating with DRF's router for minimal boilerplating. So this is really going to make them ideal for standard RESTful APIs. I think ultimately choosing between these different types of views will depend on the level of customization that you need and maybe the automation that's required.